Welcome to episode 202 of Wealth Talk. My name's Christian Rodwell, the Membership Director for WealthBuilders, joined today by our founder, Mr. Kevin Whelan. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Chris. Good to be with you again. And what a tremendous response, I have to say, we've been having to our new emphasis, our new focus, our path of new distinctions to help parents become great money role models for their kids. But let's not forget those who aren't parents as well. And I think that's just worth touching on, isn't it? Because the whole idea about education for children and being a great money role model and protecting the assets isn't just about the benefit for children, but it's also about preserving the memories and the legacy from previous generations if you're taking those assets over. And I think that was an important point that you had a realization, Chris, personally. And normally, we talk about Kev's story because, Dad died early from a council house up in Newcastle, and money was always a struggle. And I can distinctly remember those struggles, not least, going to grammar school for the first time. Not that I went a second time, but I think the first person in my family, and not having the uniform with the logo insignia on the uniform kind of embedded into the pocket. It was like a patch sewn on, and not getting the right trainers. I do remember that. Mm-hmm. And I'm certainly not lamenting those days, but we do see patterns though, don't we? And I think more often than not, when we ask people about their family experiences and what they would teach the next generation, or indeed what lessons did you learn from that you'd either move away from or keep? I would move away from money arguments. I'd move away from not sharing, and I'd move away from not preparing. Not thinking about your family as a parent when we're all so busy. There's a great quote, Chris, I've discovered as I've been doing more and more on this, which is C.S. Lewis quote, which is, children are not a distraction from more important work. They are the most important work. Great quote, don't you think?
Yeah.
And, quite valuable for us to want to be great money role models. But I know you said on the last podcast, Chris, and I was kind of thought there must be something deeper we could touch on, because, I'm a dad. I've got 3 grown-up kids now. You're not a parent. And initially I thought you were sort of quite kind of, well, I'm behind it because I understand there's more parents than not parents. But then you went away and came back and you made a distinction to me that actually was very powerful. So why don't you share that?
Yeah, no, happy to do that. And just before that, I think, we've talked in the past a lot about the wealth builders always have their arms stretched out both ways, one arm ahead to learn from those that have already taken a few steps before, and an arm behind to, pass on the knowledge and help the next generation, those behind. And, in terms of family, I don't have the next generation, in front of me, because as you say, I don't have any children yet. And, but of course, I've been a child and I've had parents and grandparents, and, actually both my parents passed away in the last 3 years, and, in the process at the moment of kind of, sorting things out and clearing out the family home. And I was doing that last weekend, and, I was up early. It was a nice sunny morning. And, originally that family home was my grandparents, was my mum's parents, and it was my grandfather, who actually, I don't know him too well. He passed away when I was probably about 6, but he was a distinguished gentleman and he achieved a lot in his life. He used to create all of the shipping maps for the Navy, and was very well respected. And he set things up well. He set up trusts, and they've been passed down through the family. And, I was actually thinking, whilst I can't relate to perhaps being a parent and passing on the wisdom to the next generation. But for me, it's really important to uphold that legacy that my grandfather created.
Great point.
And, that's really kind of, I guess, strengthened my place within the family's conversations now, because, that means a lot to me. So that was what I shared with you during the week. Yeah.
Yeah, and you showed me a photograph of a very distinguished looking gentleman, as you say, and I just loved how they dressed all, in the past there. Ever so dapper, I have to say. Unlike the sort of modern style,
That I wear.
Anyway, so we've been chatting about this kind of tremendous expansion in AI and how there's equally opportunity, but there's danger, isn't there? Certainly danger ahead as far as our next generation is concerned. And one of the things I've noticed about technology is how every second generation it sort of drops off. In other words, my kind of, if you think about my mother to my grandkids, right? So they'll be using technology she'll never see, touch, ever. And I think that is a big danger for the generation that we're trying to reach now, which is those to help them become great money role models for their children, is because they're going to hear about AI, they're going to see it, and they're going to see, and we'll talk about that, I think today would be a good one. But one of the things that will happen is this is really an inflection point in technology completely. This isn't just a slight change. This is a change that's so fundamental and revolutionary in our entire world. And I don't say that lightly. I think it's going to impact, as it is now, you can get AI to pass the bar exam. You can get AI to be medically trained to diagnose illnesses and conditions. So in many respects, what the ability for AI allows is the expansion and the magnification of humankind. In other words, it's going to speed things up. But when you speed things up, there's always somebody else for them. It goes too quickly. And I think some of our parents might become scared of the technology and worried about the technology. I think it's just good for us to be chatting about it, particularly as it relates to becoming a great money role model for your kids, so that you see how money will be impacted and you see how your relationship with your children will be impacted as well. So I think an interesting one, technology, education, money, well, it touches every aspect of life, as I've just said. So what do you want to say about that?
Well, just that, we'll obviously be inviting many more guests over the coming weeks moving forward now to talk about their own personal stories and how, these things are impacting their conversations with their children. And sure, there's kids at school now who I'm sure are tapping questions into ChatGPT and trying to pass it off as their homework answers. And, how do you get around that? And as a parent, how do you still have a role, which I guess your kids can understand, and how do you keep up with things that are moving so quickly? So what I've done is punch a few things into ChatGPT around the topic of teaching your children about financial literacy and how to be a great money role model. And it was interesting because, it pretty much reflected on most cases the key points that we already have been discussing, Kevin. And one of those is the importance of starting early. So not just in the education, but of course, power of compounding. We've talked before about putting a few pounds away for your grandkids or your kids, and they could be pension millionaires if you start that at an early age.
Well, that's certainly true from a financial viewpoint. I mean, one of the challenges in society is most people really don't focus on their wealth till it's much later. That's understandable. But because it's often later and we're living longer, as I've mentioned many times now, there's not enough money to fuel the life that's needed. And that's why 95% of the population don't make it. But if you can teach children, they've got all of those years ahead. They can deal with ups and downs. They can deal with risk. They can deal with that if they can get the knowledge that, of course, you could do things for kids, right? Just like I'm doing for my grandchildren, but that's not the same thing as involving them in the thought process and the education at the same time. And I think we need to do that. So not just do good investments and make good plans and let the power of time be a great source of funding for our next generation. But I think it's true enough to say that I'm not really an expert on the subject of this, Chris, but I've definitely heard an anecdotal quote that says, show me a person or a child by the age of 7 and I'll show you the man or the woman. And that's so much, and I'm sure I've seen some stuff coming out of Cambridge University, which talks about the kind of money influence that is definitely picked up sponge-like from children. So, they're absorbing lessons right now. So the more you can start to bring some of these money lessons, not formally, not like school. In fact, you just talked about school probably will change forever, the validity of classroom-based learning. I'm seeing so many different organizations creating learning not based in a classroom, but learning based specifically and targeted at the learning style of children themselves, whether they're visual, auditory, whatever is important to them. So I think the learning style and the ability to direct that learning style in schools will take place. And of course, instead of doing homework, they'll be doing different things to show collaboration, which I think has always been an important thing for us to talk about with wealth. It's a collaborative thing. But more often than not in schools, homework is an individual thing. So I think all of these things will change. But going back to the money lessons for children, we've got to share and show with parents how they can bring some of these subjects into the purview of the children without it being formal, without it being dad or mum says you must do this. It just becomes a natural thing, because when technology takes over, we're going to lose track of notes and coins. And I mentioned that on a previous podcast many times. We're seeing kids just tapping away life, and the use of screens in particular. Everything is driven, our whole life is driven on screens these days, including us as adults, I'm sure, and how we can manage that, because the more technology outstrips us as parents, the further away we're going to be able to control actually what they're seeing and what they're doing and what they're observing.
Yeah.
And we want to equip kids to make great decisions in the future, that responsibility, because money permeates the very fabric of our life. It's woven into everything we do. So it's important. It's a skill. It's a life skill. So we want to make sure that the education that we provide fits in, so parents can see what's going on. And when children get to a certain age, when they're not just learning now, not finding their own way, not finding who they are, their learning style, their likely careers and so on, or their likely interests in the future. But in addition to that, getting them ready to make decisions, because my big worry isn't just the screens, Chris, which I think is there. We had TVs as pacifiers when my kids were there, but now we're seeing iPads and other screens as pacifiers now, and that's really is going to take over. But I'm worried about the fact that the spend on the screen, I don't mean what we used to buy, but the spend of the big institutions, the gaming industry, the social media industry, are all there, providing information directly into the screens, which will be absorbed by our kids, and therefore many of them will succumb, as there is evidence now, to scams because they believe what they see on the screen. They're believing things as true because they see them on screens. And as a result, more kids are being caught in scams. Young adults, I don't mean little children. Phishing, lots of different things. We've seen the use of media and so on quite badly portrayed in the news recently, haven't we? So lots of things can go on, and our parents need to be aware of that. So yeah, it's a very fascinating but scary thing, I'm sure, for most. So we're determined to help our parents, who we would like to call them enlightened parents, almost begin to see they've got a hugely important role, that if they don't fulfill it, somebody else is going to. Because kids will make decisions about money. So where are they going to get the role model from? Is it social media? Is it the scammers? Is it the banks? Is it the financial institutions? Or is it us giving them good guidance and helping them to make effective and savvy decisions, not naive ones, which hold them in debt for many, many years to come and builds anxiety into their life?
Yeah.
Oh, I ramble about this a lot, don't I? Because I'm so passionate about it.
Well said. Yeah. And, we're talking a lot, but, what are we actually doing to help our members get involved in this? And I think we should start sharing, Kevin, when we're going to start making this accessible. And September is the date when we're going to roll out our version of the Families program. And if you're an existing member of Wealth Builders, you will have already received an invite for a kind of beta group session where we want to chat and discuss, like, what would you like from the program, and importantly, Kevin, which we really believe will drive this, is obviously the community aspect as well, and the connections. So we're looking for parents to help us build this, and that could include people who are already running events or might be interested in helping us host events around the UK.
Yeah, I think we've said for a very long time now in the Wheel of Wealth that the real joy of wealth building is education, support, connections. And of course, you wrap that up in a community to make all of that happen and to bring it to life. It's great. And we determined that community will drive this, because we're, just in a few weeks, we've been talking about this. Chris, you were just mentioning today that you were chatting to somebody who you know very well, but as soon as you opened the conversation about the family and children, you got so much more of an insight into who they were, what they did, and quite emotional, that dialogue, if I remember you saying so. Very, very, very powerful. And we definitely want people to decide if this is an important role for them. They want to become a great money role model for their children, and we will do our best, excuse me, to create the age appropriate content from 5 through to 25. We'll make sure we'll do that, but we're not going to get it right day one. So you're quite right, Chris. We'll invite people to participate in a beta version, which will say, hey, we're not perfect yet. We're doing our damnedest to get it right, but you'll help us identify any gaps. You can help us identify any improvements so that we can deliver a really, really outstanding value offering to parents who want to be that money role model, and not just at the beginning of the child's life, but through to when they're making decisions and through to when they're likely to inherit. And we know that there's going to be the biggest transformation of wealth in the world as the baby boomers start to sort of get older and older and older and expire. They're the richest generation of all. So there's going to be a tsunami of money flowing to the next generation who probably are ill-equipped to handle it. So, wherever you are on the spectrum, whether you've got older kids like me or really, new kids, then I think there's something that you can add, whether you want to be a case study when you're doing some things. We've had some photographs in, haven't we, of what some people are doing with their kids, just in terms of savings jars, for example, and for the younger ones. And it's been fun and fascinating to see. And I think it's made us kind of redouble our efforts to bring this earlier. I think we originally thought it would be January, but to bring the beta earlier. So if you want to participate, get in touch. And how would they do that, Chris?
Yep, just head to wealthbuilders.co.uk/families and just pop your name and email address in there, and that will get you on our kind of beta group waiting list, and you'll be the first to find out as and when we are launching, and we'd love to get you involved, as we say, in that process as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, any reviews this week?
Yes, we sure do. As always, we love to read out our latest reviews from Trustpilot from our members. And this week, let me scroll through and pull out a review from Misty, who says, I was introduced to Wealth Builders back in 2022. They were recommended to me and I have not been disappointed. They are a small business offering a real personal touch to everything they do. I could say many positive things, but the real thing I want to mention is that they really listen to their clients. I had some health issues recently and they went above and beyond to help me and offer an approach personalized to my changing needs. I didn't expect it. Great company.
That was great. It's good to hear that. And well, as always, I'm pleased with what people say about us, Chris. And I think the reviews will start pouring in as parents start discovering new ways that they can influence their children. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, excellent. So we have got next week one of our Wealth Builders coaches, our wealth coaches, to share their story of how they are discussing money with their children, and it's going to be a great episode, and so definitely tune in for that. And please do reach out to us if this is something that touches you and you'd like to speak to us and perhaps share a story. You can email us hello@wealthbuilders.co.uk, as well as obviously getting on the wait list by heading to wealthbuilders.co.uk/family. So, you know, Kevin, however people want to get in touch, whether it's through the socials, whether it's through email, you know, whether it's having a chat on the phone, this is something that, you know, we're absolutely more than happy to do.
Well, this is a big mission, right? So originally we were looking to try and help 50,000 individuals. Remember, the whole idea was trying to help individual people one at a time, but now we're focused on the wealth of a whole family, 50,000 families. That's more than you can hold in St. James's Park. Even though they've got a lovely area, lovely end for the kids. I think that's going to be fascinating, but I think there's a much stronger and more powerful reach now. I think if for example, if I said, who is an individual do you know who would like to be wealthier? You kind of think people who've already got their life sorted and so on. But if you said, who's a parent in your life and you know they're worried about their kids, they're concerned about what AI is doing, they know their kids are going to live a longer life, but don't necessarily feel equipped to be able to deal with all of that or anything else. You kind of know that because people have conversations. So if you think somebody else would benefit from knowing more about Wealth Builders for Families, nudge them in the direction of podcast 200. That would be the one probably to do, Chris, wouldn't it? And say, hey, listen to this and tell me what you think. So yeah, I'm fully expecting that this is going to catch on like wildfire, Chris, because it's just a much bigger and a better outcome, because the families themselves will become wealthy, but the impact will be far greater than the wealth of the individuals in it.
So we've got a meetup event coming up, and our next date is in London, and that's on August the 17th. It's a Thursday night. The venue's around about 5 minutes away from Marble Arch, and we kick off at 6 o'clock. So if you're a existing Wealth Builders Academy or SSAS member, then it's absolutely free to attend. And if you're not, don't worry, you can still purchase a ticket by heading to wealthbuilders.co.uk/events. And we'll be definitely hosting events around the country as we move forward. But we're kicking off next month in London, August the 17th.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Chris. Looking forward to meeting people face to face.
Yeah, me too. Okay, I think that wraps it up. So thank you once again for listening today. We always appreciate your time. And Kevin, you and I will catch up same time, same place next week.
Yes, we will, my friend. Until then, for all the families out there, see ya.